I'm not a professor. I'm a physical therapy student, and I know that frustration when you've read a lot, but your literature review still feels like it's going in circles. I spent a long time teaching myself how to search, filter, and write literature reviews without drowning in papers. So today, I want to walk you through the number one literature review mistake I keep seeing, and I'm going to show you exactly how I fixed it for myself. This is going to help if you feel like you're going in circles, drowning in papers, or if your supervisor said your review is descriptive but not analytical, or that it lacks synthesis. All of those are symptoms of one root cause. You don't know where your literature review is going. If you don't know the destination, you will get lost. And I don't want this to be a one-way lesson. I want it to be a knowledge exchange. Comment your topic and tell me where you're stuck right now, because I'll use real viewer topics for the next video. In this video, I'll show you a key concept, the literature review funnel. I'll show you what a lit review is actually for, the correct model of the funnel, and how to handle the end stage so you can justify your study with a clear gap. By the end, you'll have a simple funnel model that tells you exactly where your review is going and how to land on a clear research gap. Misconception: a lit review is not a book report. A lot of students think a literature review is just proving you did the reading. You grab a stack of papers, you summarize each one, and you hope the reader is impressed. But that is exactly how you end up with a draft your supervisor calls descriptive. Because a strong literature review is not a summary. It is an argument. It has a direction. It is trying to answer one question from the first paragraph to the last. Why does your study need to exist? If your review cannot make that case by the end, then even if it has 50 citations, it still feels like it is going in circles. And that going in circles feeling is usually not laziness. It is not intelligence. It is simply that the review has no destination, so the writing has no map. Think of it like physical therapy. If a patient walks into clinic with knee pain and you do not have a working hypothesis, every test feels random. You can keep testing for hours and still feel lost. But the moment you have a model, you test with purpose. A literature review works the same way. Without a model, you will drown in papers. With a model, you will start seeing patterns, and patterns become structure, and structure becomes confidence. The funnel model: wide to narrow to a clear gap. Here is the model I use, and it is simple enough that you can apply it to your topic today. Your literature review should look like a funnel. It starts wider, then narrows, then lands precisely on a gap that logically demands your research question. And I want to be very specific about what start wider means. It means you begin one level broader than your exact study. If your topic is musculoskeletal diseases and you are studying something specific like rehabilitation approaches for knee osteoarthritis, do not start your review at knee osteoarthritis in your exact setting. Start one level up. Start with the bigger problem that your reader already accepts as important, like the global burden of musculoskeletal pain, disability, and function loss, or the clinical challenge of long-term pain management and mobility. Then narrow into osteoarthritis as a major contributor. Then narrow into knee osteoarthritis as a common, high-impact presentation. Then narrow into the intervention space, for example, exercise therapy, education, self-management, or adherence and behavior change. Then narrow again into the exact angle your study targets. This is what a funnel does. It protects you from two disasters at the same time. If you start too narrow, you will panic and say, there aren't enough studies. If you start too wide and never narrow, you will say, I have 300 papers and I still don't know what to write. The funnel is the middle path, wide enough to find evidence, narrow enough to create meaning. And here is the key line I repeat to myself when I write: topic to gap, gap to question, question to method, topic to gap, gap to question, question to method. If those links are not tight, your review becomes a pile of facts instead of a strategy. When those links are tight, your reader can feel where you are going, even before you reach the end. Now, when you move through the funnel, you are not just shrinking the topic. You are building pressure. You are showing what we know, then what we do not know, then why that unknown matters. That final unknown is the gap. Not a dramatic gap, not a fake gap, but a real gap where the evidence starts to wobble. That is where your study belongs. The middle of the funnel. Synthesis, not name dropping. This is the part where most students get stuck. They write in a straight line. Paper A says this. Paper B says that. Paper C also says something similar. It reads like a list, not a literature review. The fix is synthesis. Synthesis means you group evidence by patterns, not by authors. So instead of organizing by who wrote what, organize by what the literature is doing. Where do studies agree? Where do they disagree? What methods are strong and what methods are weak? What outcomes are measured well and what outcomes are fuzzy? What populations are overstudied and what populations are ignored? What is consistent across settings And what changes when context changes? Those are the questions that turn a review into an argument. Here is the writing move that forces synthesis. I call it did and found. Not because it belongs to anyone, but because it is the simplest sentence frame that stops you from writing like a Wikipedia summary. When you cite a paper, do not write, "The authors said exercise helps." Write what they did and what they found. For example, instead of saying, "A study showed exercise reduces pain," you write, "The researchers compared a structured exercise program to usual care in people with knee osteoarthritis and measured pain and function over time. They found improvements in pain and functional outcomes, but the effect depended on adherence and follow-up." That one sentence does two things. It shows you understand the method, and it shows you understand the result. It is not just a quote. It is evidence. Notice what happens when you write like that. You naturally start asking better questions. What kind of exercise? What dose? What intensity? What population? What outcome measures? Short-term or long-term? Supervised or home-based? You start seeing the edges of the evidence, and the edge of evidence is where gaps live. If you are writing about musculoskeletal diseases, this matters even more, because the literature often looks busy, but still leaves practical uncertainty. You might have many studies showing exercise is beneficial, but fewer studies that clarify which components matter most, what improves adherence, how to scale interventions, or how outcomes differ across age groups, comorbidities, or baseline severity. A good literature review does not just say exercise works. It says, here is what works means in this literature. Here is where it is consistent, here is where it breaks, and here is the specific unknown my study will address. And if you want to move faster without losing integrity, you can use Anara as an evidence organizer, not a replacement for your thinking. For example, you can ask it to compare papers inside your folder by intervention type, outcome measures, and limitations. Then you verify the citations and decide what belongs in your funnel. The rule stays the same. If a detail does not move you closer to your gap, it does not belong. If a claim cannot be backed by a paper you can point to, it does not belong. 2. Common mistakes and the simple fix for each. The first mistake sounds like this: I can't find enough studies. Most of the time, that is not because the field is empty. It is because you started too narrow. You began at the bottom of the funnel. You picked the exact setting, the exact subgroup, the exact intervention combination, and then you were surprised the literature was thin. The fix is to go up one level. Go broader, find the bigger body of evidence, identify the pattern, then narrow back down to justify why your specific angle matters. The second mistake sounds like this: I'm drowning in papers. That usually means your funnel is not a funnel. It is a straight pipe. You are collecting, but you are not narrowing with purpose. The fix is to force narrowing. Choose your organizing signals: population, intervention category, outcome type, mechanism, method strength, then synthesize. Your goal is not to cover everything ever written. Your goal is to build a focused argument that lands on a gap that demands your study. If you remember only one thing from this entire body section, let it be this: your literature review is not a reading diary. It is a strategic argument. Use the funnel. Write did and found. Keep the through line tight, topic to gap, gap to question, question to method. If you've been feeling lost, it doesn't mean you're bad at research. It usually means you didn't have the right mental model yet. Once your funnel is clear, everything else gets easier. You stop collecting papers just to feel productive, and you start writing with a destination in mind. So here's what I want you to do right now. Drop your topic in the comments and tell me which part of the funnel you're stuck on. Are you too broad, too narrow, or are you struggling to land on a real research gap? I'll use real viewer topics to make follow-up videos so we can learn together. And if you want more help with literature reviews, especially if you like the support of AI, go watch the other videos on my channel. I break down the exact workflows I use to search, compare, and synthesize papers faster without losing quality. I'll also leave the link to the AI tools I regularly use for my own literature reviews down in the description. See you in the next video.